Last week of ministry. As you look through the list of stories, you see that Jesus cleansed the temple twice. First time was early on in his ministry, some say within the first year. And then there's this one that comes between the triumphal entry and the crucifixion. As we mentioned before, the marketplace was in what was called the court of the Gentiles. Solomon set it up so that when Gentiles come to the city, they could go to the temple and pray. But as years went by, the Jews hated the Gentiles more and more, and for good reason. And to go to the temple at this point, they literally would probably be killed. So they simply took their section and made it into a market. They sold animals that were specially approved to be sacrificed at an increased price. And there had to be a special coin that, for anyone that would sacrifice. And the rate of exchange was 12%. Normal rate of exchange during that time, even though it was high, it was still 10%. There's a little bit of a controversy that some hold that there was only one cleansing of the temple. They say that only John talks about the earlier cleansing of the temple. And it's true that John was not concerned about chronological order. Matter of fact, he very definitely, he was only selecting events during the life of Christ. And they hold that he thought this one is so important that he talks about it early in his book rather than late. The other three Gospels only talk about this cleansing here. And the rationale for this is the fact that at this point, Jesus had the authority to cleanse the temple. During the triumphal entry, he was declared Messiah, the Son of David, King of Israel. I hold to the two cleansings. And I take special note here that the first one that happened early in his ministry seemed like Jesus had to go through a lot of effort. Describes about the whip and how he had to drive the animals out, and he told the people to take the birds out. He turned the money tables over. Where at this one here, it seemed like it was no effort at all. I can only imagine that is every time he came to the temple that it made the money changers and the animal sellers a little bit nervous. And yet, he never did it a second time. And so finally, when he walks in this time, especially after that triumphal entry, that more or less all he had to do is out. And they gathered his stuff up and out they went. He just turned some tables over. The vineyard, during that day and age, it was quite common for a wealthy person to buy up some land and to plant vineyards, put a wall around it with a watchtower, and then to hire people to oversee it. Generally, like in the case right here, it looks like it's a huge vineyard, so he hires several families. They were in charge to treat it like their own. They were to tend it, they were to harvest the fruit, then they were to process the grapes, make them into wine or raisins or whatever they would do. And then the agreement is that the owner would get half and the families would have the other half. So that's what's happening here. The people who are tending the vineyard want it all. And the people during that day, they understood this agreement. They were almost angry when they heard what these people were doing to the owner. Well, come back next week when we give you more insights on the story of the week. We'll see you next week.